Hey Teddy, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good, good. Yourself?
Aloha.
I
Great
mean,
to
I just
join you finally.
yeah, I'll just start off with a quick introduction, and then we can hit off with the show.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for tuning in, and people on your side, Teddy's side, who are awake and watching the show. Thank you so very much. My name is Nitin, and I go by the name the Beard Brews. That's my podcast channel. I'm a coffee enthusiast. I'm a podcaster. I mean, I do workshops as well, and I love everything about coffee. And today
Yeah.
we have a very dear friend of mine, Teddy Nista, all the way from US, joining us for this podcast. Teddy, thank you so very much for taking the time out, even though it's probably midnight there
I,
currently.
I timed it in such a way that I'm going to be baking my focaccia like in the next hour. So I took a nap for like 3 hours,
Uh,
and here I am.
Brilliant. So we have Teddy today on the show. It's episode 4, season 1 of Beards Brew. Give a very warm and virtual welcome to Teddy. Teddy,
Thanks
just
for
a
having me.
basic,
Appreciate it.
just a quick introduction about yourself, and then we can, head off with the show because I'm sure there are a lot of people looking forward for this in terms of, how to master their espresso and stuff because I'm one of them who learned the art of layered shots from you. I think I reckon last year when we
Yeah.
got in touch and we were like, oh my God, I was just blown away.
Yep.
So yeah,
That's
Teddy,
awesome.
on to you.
I remember that.
Teddy, on to you.
Let's see. I mean, I probably started making espresso about 2011. A long time ago, man. I had just moved up to Portland, Oregon, and I was going to start a business, and that didn't really work out. We ended up looking at houses for the most part. We were thinking about renting a place to start a business, but started renovating houses and started making coffee every single morning, man. It was espresso every day, dialing in espresso every morning. And it was like, well, first we had the Barista Express from Breville. We did the whole grinder there, ground everything into that espresso machine. And then eventually we were like, oh, this grinder totally sucks, and had to get something else, right? We got the Breville Dual Boiler at one point,
Correct.
probably like 2012. We're like, okay, what's like the next level for espresso, for like affordable espresso for someone? And at that
Correct.
time, there wasn't much choice. It was like you either spend $10,000 on like a super premium commercial machine, or you get, I think the Breville Dual Boiler then was $1,200, and that was a lot. I mean, it was twice the price of the Breville at least, the Breville Barista Express anyway. And so finally, with the dual boiler, you have control over temperature, and that's something I
Correct.
didn't have access to, and I felt like, that was the next evolution for me in my espresso experience.
Right.
And so, yeah, we just started immediately messing around with those different settings. There were lots
Right.
of choices you could do. I think with the Breville Dual Boiler, you can change pre-infusion time. You can adjust the pressure a little bit. You have
Right.
like these sort of initial settings to mess around with. And
Correct.
so having temperature access was like, that changed it for me, because I feel like in espresso, you really need to be able to adjust the temperature and to dial in your
True.
beans. And without that, it was
Correct.
like, well, it was good, but you can't really make it better. It's like having that choice is like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can finally improve the coffee. And then as well, I think I got the Baratza Vario, which was like a flapper. I didn't even know that was a flapper until recently. I took this thing apart. I looked inside. I was like, oh my God, this thing's a flapper. All this time I had a flapper grinder. I had no idea. It was super cool. But the Vario had incredible grinder settings. I mean, you could go to the most millimeter adjustments to to dial in your coffee. And I don't even know if I have a grinder that really dials in the way the
Is it?
Vario did.
So
Like,
you're talking about the Vario VS3? Isn't that conical both?
no,
Conical grinder.
before the VS3, there was the Baratza Vario.
Are the on the lines of Encore, the Bratza Encore, something like
Yeah,
that?
something
You
like
trying?
that.
Okay,
That brand. They have one called like the Vario W now, I think. And then yeah, like
correct.
Varia has now kind of maybe used that name and trying to kind of brand it off that. But yeah, the
Brilliant.
Vario, like it has the weirdest little like these little levers. So on one side you have a lever that does like a macro adjustment.
Right.
So it's like it makes like a big change, and so it has these weird dialing like letters, I guess. And then the other side is numbers, and the same kind of thing. It's like a micro adjustment,
Oh,
so it makes
God. But
a very
actually,
gentle step.
that would be very good for espresso because when you
Oh
type,
yeah,
there are times when you try to dial in a new
you
bag of
just want to
beans.
go like
So
the
yeah, so
tiniest.
you can correct. So you can play around with the microns,
Yeah,
like the second half of the grinder's adjustment. So you don't have to play around with the whole adjustment altogether. So
exactly.
you can set on setting one, and then you can play around with A, B, C, whatever
Yep,
works best for
yep.
you. Correct. Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know if there really aren't any grinders today that have that like fine
Yeah.
tuning of stuff. It's crazy.
Correct.
But yeah,
So
that really changed things for us. We went to the Breville Dual Boiler to the Vario, and then from that, I think the next machine was something similar to what you have now. It was called the Spaziale, and on that machine, it was like more classic Italian espresso, but you don't
all
have
right.
pre-infusion, so that was kind of weird.
I think the one that I also use, you can see at the back of me, I use the Rancilio Class 5 single group head. So I don't have the luxury to, play around with the flow control or
Yep,
the temperature. I mean, if I want to play with the temperature, you can see where I've kept the ceramic
yep,
cups. So I
yep,
have to lift that whole thing, and then with a flathead screwdriver, I have to keep playing around. So, I don't want to get into all that hassle. So I've
yep,
set it to 90 degrees, which is fair enough for any coffee. You know what I mean? Until
yep.
unless you're playing around on decent or a specific
Absolutely.
espresso machine where you have the luxury of the flow control with the
Yep.
pre-infusion and stuff. And I drink a lot of coffee, so I think I need a workhorse because decent will not give me back-to-back shots because then again it will just die off on me because that's basically for profiling
Mm-hmm.
purpose. You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, great introduction, Teddy. Very detailed introduction, I would say. So let's
Just my
let's hit off with
story.
the sorry.
Just my story.
Oh yes. So let's hit off with the story. I want to know what coffee are you having and which one is it?
All right, here we got
I know
this is
you have
Prodigal
barrage
Aguacate.
of coffees. I know you have barrage of coffee, but yeah. Okay, you're having
Yeah,
prodigal. Oh, lovely.
yeah, yeah.
It's
This
contra.
is
Oh
I
yeah.
don't have too many filter coffees in stock at the moment. I think most of the stuff I was drinking is over in Hawaii at the moment. So uh,
Correct.
I just came back to mainland because I'm going to Coffee Expo
In
next week,
Chicago.
right? So just
That's
went.
in Chicago.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, if people, guys, I'm sure you would want to know where Teddy, which state or city you grew up before you mentioned you came to mainland. So, I mean, I
Oh,
just want
so
to
I
clear
was
the
in
air. So, yeah.
Kauai just like a month ago, right? I was working on my house over there. So before that, let's see, I went to college in Virginia, and then I moved to California, and that was like 2001. From
All right.
2001 to 2010, 11, I was managing an old-fashioned pharmacy in California, and one of our customers was Clint Eastwood.
Oh, nice.
Delivering medicine to Clint Eastwood's house. It was fun.
Good stuff, man.
Drinking those mocha lattes, and I had a cute girl delivering me coffees. It was a dream. It was a fun time.
Oh, lovely. But yeah, I mean, the whole coffee journey started with your wife. I mean, she was more into coffee,
Oh yeah,
and she was the one
she was
who
the
got you into
espresso one.
coffee. So yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
a backstory on that would be fun. I mean, though,
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife spent a lot of time in the Middle East, in Bahrain and Syria and other places, and everywhere she went, she'd meet somebody who was like obsessed with espresso or obsessed with coffee, and they'd show her like this is our way to enjoy coffee.
correct,
And so eventually she met someone who was like, we drink our coffee black, straight, no sugar, no milk, and we taste all of our coffees straight up first before we start messing around and adding different flavors like sugar or cream or something. But
right.
so she kind of like taught me this style of like enjoying the flavor of the coffee first before kind of like trying to dial it
Oh,
some other way. And
so
like
she literally put you on the sensory
put
journey,
me on this
basically.
like no sugar, no milk, you just taste it straight, and I'm like, okay, I can do that,
And
sure.
try to
And
comprehend what coffee,
started
what do
paying
you
attention to like
what can you replicate from your
origins
muscle
and
memory? Correct,
flavors and just kind of maybe treating it like wine, I guess,
correct.
because she she lived for many years in like a wine town in France, and they grow lots of Pinot Noir there, and so she would be like, "Oh, you want to taste these sort of fruit notes, and the wine should always have like a dominant flavor and then
Correct.
secondary flavors." And so we come to coffee with that kind of mentality where like you want
Actually,
you want your
coffee is
coffees
actually
when they're
considered
roasted to like have this flavor. Sorry, what was that?
coffee is actually considered, how we have an approach to wine. It's the same way we have approach to coffee.
It's
Specialty coffee.
really becoming more and more like that these
Yes,
days. Yeah.
correct.
I mean, you see these coffee producers, they're doing a lot of processes that are from winemaking. I feel like anaerobic, carbonic maceration. All these things are techniques that the wine industry has used.
Correct.
Fermenting the grapes um, in their skins or something is like what the honey process is, right? It's like,
Actually, I had list down a lot of processes. I'll just read out to you and to the
mhm.
people who are new to coffee or already know. You have something like anaerobic fermentation, cold fermentation, carbonic maceration, dry fermentation, extended fermentation, honey fermentation, red, white, and black. I think the black is the most expensive one and it's more tedious.
Okay,
Then you have something like hypoxia fermentation. I've never heard of this. Then you have macerated fermentation. Again, I've not heard of this. Natural fermentation, slow fermentation, washed, and yeast fermentation. So there are two, three kind of fermentation that I've never even heard of
yeah,
come across to begin with. Probably,
crazy.
I mean, I've tried a lot of coffees from around the globe, but I've never come across, not even, by mistake, I've not even read what I just said, hypoxia
Yeah,
fermentation or macerated fermentation. This is something very
bizarre.
unusual to me.
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like the processing is changing a lot in coffee because of maybe climate change. People are going to have to find new ways to process their coffees with limited access to water, I guess. And so I think that's kind of why we're seeing more of these fermentations because they don't have running water at the top of the mountain anymore the way they used to.
But nowadays, coffee is becoming more and more funky. I don't know. I mean, why, producers are getting into the whole funky. No, I mean, yes, there are certain coffees that I love, especially in India, uh, who are a bit funky, and I absolutely love it. The aroma just fills the air. I mean,
Yeah,
the air, it
like
fills
some of
the
these
room,
ones
the aroma.
that we're finding here, they're doing like passion fruit fermentation or peach fermentation. So they're like fermenting the coffee
With the
in a
fruit.
sort of peach maceration or or passion fruit maceration. So it's like infusing the
Yeah,
coffee. It's
because I've seen one
nuts.
of the process where somebody was doing. I will not name that person, but those guys were doing a pineapple fermentation where they, I think, in tons and tons of fresh pineapple, they chop fresh pineapples, put it in like like a
Yeah.
I would not say like a barrel, but like a huge container,
Hmm.
like a steel drum or whatever you call it.
Yep.
Where you do the fermentation of coffee beans,
Hmm.
the cherries rather, and they infuse the cherry beans or the fruit with actual pineapple fruit
Absolutely.
for
Yep.
like I think 72 hours or probably I don't know how many
So there's
hours, but yeah,
like one aspect of coffee where like they measure the beans for a certain amount of humidity, and I
and
think
the
what's going
density.
on is they're not finding the right amount of humidity, and so they're like, oh, either we throw away this coffee and call it garbage, or we doctor it with this sort of one of these weird processing techniques to try to add some kind of flavor to this stuff. So
Right.
they're like treating the coffee bean now as like a sponge. How do we flavor this
Or probably
sponge?
how we maximize the
Yeah.
coffee which can't be consumed and make
Keep
it
it
consumable.
viable. I mean,
Right.
these communities are surviving off coffee. So if they process it and they find nothing, then it sucks.
Correct.
They have to sell. They have to make a product and sell it. So
Okay. So somebody has mentioned um about the producer series one. They wash it with marigold water. Oh my word. Okay. Oh yes, the producer series from BT. That's Blue Tokai. Uh, all right. Terry, I mean, tell me something. What have you started doing recently with your coffee in terms of experiment? Because I know, when I think of you, I only think, okay, this bugger is just doing experiment left, right, and center, and that literally draws me onto your page to know. I mean, beside the witty stories that you put on your Instagram, besides that, but yeah, when it comes to coffee, I mean, I really nerd out when I have to nerd out. So I will
I mean,
just
I feel
hop onto
like
your
I have to
post.
start roasting pretty soon. I mean, I'm
I
struggling to
think that's the only
find
thing
the
which is
coffee
left now.
flavors that I'm used to in my past. Like I had roasters that I buy coffee from for years, and then they sell to some new roaster who doesn't roast the same way, and he just churns out these like burnt roast coffees that don't have the chocolate, they don't have the caramel, and I'm over here like trying to make layered shots with these dark roasts, and they don't do it for me. So I'm like, do I have to start roasting my own coffee?
I
Because this is
mean, I
crap,
think
man.
that's the only thing which is left in your list of accomplishment in terms of when it comes to coffee. I reckon.
Yeah, it's something I want to like try to find more time to do. So I saw someone recently say, "Oh, I do my roasting on the weekend." So it's like, you know what? I'm gonna try to start doing. If I can stop doing other things on the weekend and just do some roasting, that's kind of
Yeah,
my goal
man.
right now. I want to get
Even
weekends to be roasting time.
this guy from I think he's based in Seattle, or correct me if I'm wrong. The brown barista
Yeah,
who
Brown
just
Barista. He's based in what, San Francisco? Yeah.
San Francisco. Frisco. So I've been after him, like, please start international shipping. I've been wanting to, try a coffee. And when I saw the coffee, the Paraja coffee that you ordered from his site, and I'm like, okay, Teddy, you need to send me some. But yeah, I'm hoping that that guy starts the international shipping because I'm
Okay,
really looking
that's
forward for
awesome.
it.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm
Yeah, because I mean,
really,
there's
I'm
a
really
huge
hoping that
scope in
he,
India.
ups his game in coffee for sure. I mean, I think he's got a great opportunity right now to be a brand
Correct.
and sell some coffee, and I
He
hope
he
he,
he already is a
dials it in.
brand. If you go to see, he's a Instagram sensation.
Yeah,
I mean,
amazing. I
he
mean, he
is,
made
yes.
like some really hilarious coffee videos and just totally blew up. I mean, from the brewer video
Correct.
to one about buying espresso gear. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just so funny. I mean, he's a comedian. I mean,
Yeah, totally. I remember you did back up some project on Kickstarter. Would you mind sharing about it
I
to the
backed up
viewers?
this project right here. The
The X
The
Bloom.
X Bloom. Where is it? Can we see it?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, we can.
I can't see it. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
So I backed this project on Kickstarter,
All right.
and I think it was, I want to say, $400. I bought it for, not me, I bought it for my wife's son who drinks a lot of like instant coffee. And I was like, you know what? I don't drink filter coffee. I'm just going to give this to him. And then by the time this thing arrived, which was like a year ago in April, he
Right.
quit drinking coffee, that guy. Quit drinking coffee.
Oh my
He
God.
was like,
How is he
"Oh,
surviving?
coffee makes me anxious. I can't drink coffee anymore. I can't even do decaf." And I was like, "Okay, well,
I think he
I
was
got
not
this
having the
brand new coffee
right
machine. I guess I'm
quality
gonna
of coffee,
use it."
probably.
What's that?
Sorry, I was overlapping. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, I was like, "Okay, I got this brand new coffee machine. I'm gonna use it just for content, right?" And I fell in love with this machine. Like, I just, as a coffee taster who just wants to like grind the coffee, see how it tastes, dial it in, it's like, here's a great way to do that. It's so easy. You just feed your beans in there. It has a standard recipe. And
Correct.
so, you get a little pod. Here's a pod.
It's a reusable pot.
So you can order these pods. You can get like a box of 8 or something, or 10. And so comes with a filter inside, comes with the
Okay.
beans. You take the lid off, you scan the bottom of it here. It's got a little code. So you
Okay.
tap the top of the machine, and then it loads like the recipe that the roaster wanted you to taste
Okay.
of the coffee. And
Oh,
it's like,
lovely.
oh, sweet. So I don't have to do anything. It has the grinder setting. It changes the grinder setting for you. It changes the water temperature for you. And I'm like, okay, I'll just taste every coffee and see what the flavor
Right.
is. And then I'll see, okay, this one's really juicy. Maybe we can try a layered shot of espresso, something like that. So it's like just an
Right.
easiest way to just have a baseline
Good
coffee
filter coffee.
flavor, see how it is. And now you can taste every single coffee with this baseline. And you
But
have
don't you think
the
this just
same repeatable formula across the board. And, one coffee is awesome, and the other coffee is totally ordinary. And you're like, well, we just won't order from that roaster anymore.
uh no, but don't you think I mean given the thing that okay, X Bloom, if you on a if you having a busy day or whatever, you're in a rush, okay, you go to X Bloom. But sometimes for me, I like the whole idea of brewing my own coffee, like grinding and brewing and measuring and stuff. It's like a zen time for me. Don't you think that X Bloom is trying to take away that thing? But then again, people are realizing that, you know what, no, I like X Bloom, but then again, I also like this side of brewing coffee as well.
I
What's your take on that?
never understood brewing coffee. I'm like an espresso person, and like the espresso
Totally.
has to be dialed into like the milligram. And then anytime I would make filter coffee, I would grab a filter. I'd just take some spoons of dried powder, pour it in. I didn't know that there was like a recipe, or you're supposed to
Right.
pour 100 at a time. I didn't know that it was supposed to take 3.5 minutes. I didn't know any of that stuff. Like, I just
Right. So
making
actually,
coffee, and
I
it's
completely
always
agree with
crap.
you.
Every
I
single time I make filter coffee, it's garbage. And so it was like, for the very first time, I had like the perfect filter coffee. And now, having used the X Bloom, I like understand filter coffee. So now I'm like you, and I appreciate it. And
right.
I'm like, oh wow, I want to own all those filters that I see.
Right.
Daddy got coffee using. He's got like
Right.
stacks of brewers, and then
Brewers.
same like Alvin Chang, he's got stacks of brewers. I'm
Correct.
like, oh, now I understand like each of these brewers are very unique. And so yeah, I'll taste a coffee on the X-Bloom and be like, oh, I don't think that's quite hitting, the spot.
Right.
And so the X-Bloom maxes out at like 203 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's like
Okay.
it's not boiling, right? So
Correct.
for a lot of these lighter roasts, you need like a boiling temperature for
Right.
the maximum extraction. So
At
yeah,
least around neighborhood of 96 degrees Celsius.
I'll go and
96.
brew it at that temperature and use like the Pietro, which is a terrible grinder experience, but it makes great coffee. So
Correct.
I did that today. I went and ground some Gesha with the Pietro and was like, oh wow, coffee's amazing.
Right. Right. No, actually, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm a hardcore espresso guy myself. I mean, I started my journey with espresso. It's just been like, give and take 2.5 years that I've gone into manual brew, like
Okay.
more on filter coffees. And I'm
Hmm.
actually I'm kind of enjoying filter coffee as well. I mean, like for last, if I have to give you a reason, like recently, like last 2 weeks, I was out of espresso beans, and I had a lot of filter coffee on my hand. Plus, I have a friend of mine in Singapore, so he sent me a lot of geishas that he's been roasting, and we working on some coffees as well. And I've been enjoying that coffee. I mean, I feel like my body is taking a break from that espresso, and I'm trying to understand more the dynamics of the coffee in terms of a filter, because
Yep.
there you have the control of, okay, I want to pour this much, I want to give this ratio, I want to use this kind of temperature. With the espresso, what happens is, okay, you have a set recipe like 1:2 or 1:2.5, or if you want to spro, you can do 18 in and 40 out in less than 20 seconds. Then yes, you have a lot of room for playing. But if you use the same coffee for espresso and filter, and if you're an espresso guy, you'll be like, you know what? I love espresso. I cannot comprehend on the filter. But yeah, I totally get it. But yeah, I mean, X Bloom does make a lot of difference for people who are getting into
That's
coffee and
the
want
thing.
to
It's
understand.
for people that aren't specialty yet.
Yes,
Like it's trying to bring these like Keurig people that are using pods or even Nespresso to be like,
right,
oh wow, freshly ground means something.
correct, correct. Yeah, so I mean, so basically, X Bloom is basically, like a baseline for people who are getting coffee. Like, if a person is getting a coffee with an espresso mindset, then he or she will probably go for like a Breville, like, like the basic model or the DeLonghi,
Hmm.
the small DeLonghi that you
Yep.
get, stainless steel body.
Hmm.
So I think X Bloom is working on that line for filter,
For filter,
I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they have a
Yeah.
new one that's coming out in like April 29th, and it looks like the decent version of the X Bloom. It probably has some ability to on the screen probably adjust grind settings and temperature. So it might be like a little more expensive, I'm guessing. I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, if it's expensive in US, then it will be
I
twice
mean,
times 10,
this one
probably
is
10x.
600 or 700 right now, which I think is expensive. I mean, I
So in
spent
India,
400
whatever,
on Kickstarter, and that was a lot. But
wow,
for a coffee machine, I mean, Americans are used to spending I want 70, $80 at the most on a coffee machine. Like $100
right,
is even pushing. Like,
for
now,
sure,
now, like the Keurig is probably selling one for 250. So
correct,
that's like the baseline for something like the X Bloom. And then there's this other company called the Ratio. So the Ratio sells something similar to the X Bloom that's like an automatic pour over for
right,
750, maybe even 800. So like
right,
these machines are out there and they're just gonna push
yeah,
the minimum up for the X Bloom because that's what they're
right.
competing with, and those people are selling machines, so that
I
becomes the
think,
minimum
Teddy, there are a lot
spec, I
of
think.
other electric semi-automatic machines are also coming up where they have the capability of, doing filters. Like for instance, Victoria Prima One, if I pronounce it right, Prima
Yep.
One. So it has a different portafilter with a mesh basket, a conical mesh basket. So you don't have to keep changing the filter papers. You just put the portafilter on the group head, and we'll do, because the flow rate goes down for filter. I mean, there are some settings.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with decent as well. I believe you have a decent
I do have
yourself,
the
right?
decent. I have the filter 3.0 that they just released too. So I've been
Right.
playing a little bit with that.
I read an article a few days back, and I even spoke to a friend of mine. So Diesel is coming up with a new machine,
They are.
hopefully within this year. Oh my God! So what they have come up with is just mind-boggling. So they have come up with, when you place the machine on a flat bed, as in on a table or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the stands of the machine or the leg of the machine is like an independent hydraulic suspension kind of thing, like how you have it in a Range Rover car. So
Okay.
every tire has a independent suspension. So that machine will probably have an independent,
Some way
uh,
to like level itself.
like a level. So it will level
That's
itself
the thing I
automatically.
struggle the most with on that machine is like getting it level. And even
Yeah.
my
Plus they,
brew
they
pad
have
isn't
they'll be
level.
having the inbuilt weighing system as well
That's
this time.
cool. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
that
to.
machine is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. It might even have a paddle, kind of like a Cinesso on the front of it, so that'll be cool. You could do some sort of more controlled flow control stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure decent whenever they do something, they just come up with some incredible
I think
product, man. I mean,
basically the guy's a programmer who runs the company.
right,
So because he has that like programmer mentality, it's
correct.
like it's if this, then this. And so
This,
every
correct.
time it's like
Right,
it has to be, exactly what he says it's gonna be. So good.
right. Good stuff, man. I mean, I mean,
I mean, you
Terry, I know
asked
you.
me like what experiments I'm working on right now,
Yes,
so I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm constantly doing all kinds of weird stuff. So it's
I
just
know
it's
from breaking and opening the coffee machines to the coffee grinders to putting a bloody hole, or on the. I remember when you had got the fellow Opus.
oh my
Oh
God,
my God!
yeah.
I People didn't hear end of it. I mean, you were like just on and on and on about it, like what shitty this grinder is. I have to cut open the whole thing. Especially I think the where you put the beans,
Yeah,
or
the hopper,
it's
yeah.
yeah, the hopper. So you did your best to cut off the parts, the
Oh my God,
plastic
that
part, and try
thing
to
is so
adjust. Oh my
ridiculous.
word!
Now I have two of them. I won one in like a fellow giveaway, like a charity giveaway.
Oh,
I managed to win another Opus. So I have one. I have two. It's like my most hated grinder, and now I have another one.
but yeah. Besides this, I know you're working on something. I mean, for everybody who's watching, I'm sure I don't know if people are aware of it, but me on a personal level, I am super stoked and looking forward for your product called
Thank
Squid,
you.
which is I mean I will put you on. I mean, I'll put on to you. You give us the description and the backstory of Squid,
So
please.
here's what happened with Squid. Okay, we were on COVID lockdown. Okay, so we were on COVID lockdowns,
Right.
and you know how complicated espresso is. Like you know how you have all your different tools,
Correct.
and we were like, hey, I wonder if there's another way to do this. And
Right.
so we found out that there was somebody else out there who was doing uh, vibrations with coffee, and I saw his stuff, and I was like, oh my God. So it's possible. You can vibrate coffee. There's some weird guy in Italy who's selling his product,
Right.
and I think he sells it for like $600 or $700 or $750 or something like that. So I was like, all right, so there's like a possibility that vibrating can work.
Right.
And I saw what he was doing, and his machine, it's like causing this like convulsing of all the coffee grinds are all mixing in his
Right.
portafilter. And so at the time I'm making these layered shots, and I'm with layered shots, I'm telling myself, okay, a concentrated flavor is better than a blended flavor. So that's why
Right.
I'm doing these layered shots. It's like I want to taste a whole natural flavor,
We're
and I want to
going
like
to talk about the
squeeze
layered
one of
shots
these whole
later on.
flavors into another whole flavor. So it's
Right.
like you get a full flavor and another full flavor. I don't know. For me, it was like it's something from cooking. Um,
But yeah, Teddy,
but
we're going to talk about the layered shot in some time. First, we'll finish with the squid one.
for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. But that's what brought us to the squid, and that's why we were doing. That's why we were thinking that there was another way to vibrate because
Correct.
Nuri's vibrator is mixing, and I'm like, hey, we can't have these layers mixing. So we were like, okay, we need to find if there's like a way to vibrate so that things distribute,
Right.
but they don't mix, and we don't have these layers joining each other. So that was kind of the challenge. And so I just went into my tool chest and just
Right.
took my portafilter and pushed it against this thing. It was like, okay, let's pull a shot of espresso and see what happens. And eventually I
Right.
found something that worked, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. How,
Right.
what, that I didn't even do anything. It
Yeah.
just vibrated the coffee, and um, my wife said, "Hey, did you tamp on it?" And I was like, "Well, that doesn't even make sense. Why would I tamp on the thing? Like, because she doesn't make the espresso. I make the espresso. You
Right.
know, like you make the espresso. Like
Right.
we taste it together, but like I'm the one who's in the process doing all the steps, and I'm like,
Right.
you don't tamp on your distributor tool. Like that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like I'll tamp while vibrating and see what happens. I don't know,
Right.
just for the sake of experimentation.
Correct.
So I did that, and like, wow, it worked great. I was like, okay,
Right.
we can do this more. And
Right.
so that kind of launched this whole like, okay, we need to try like every coffee out there to see, is this method improving coffee flavors? Is it just this one coffee that I have right now? And so I really just started trying like any coffee, any roaster I could get my hands on. And that's
Right.
I think I did kind of discover that like layered shots do really help all kinds of different coffees
Right.
that we kind of struggled with before, especially on espresso. Like if you get a medium roast that's like not quite dark enough, it might
Right.
not be super delicious. And you know, how can you still use that coffee if it's like too acid? So that's something I find a lot with certain filter coffees. They're like way too acidic. And I was like, hey, can we use that
Right.
acidity? And
Right.
so we were doing these layered shots long before we found the squid.
Right.
So that's what led us to the squid. We were like, okay, we're layering coffee in the portafilter. We're using all these different tools. The first it would be WDT, my base layer. Then I would tamp and twist the tamper, but I do it very gently because I don't know, like espresso's complicated.
Right.
It's finicky. Like if you press a little too much, you're going to cause channeling. So you have to be just like so
To the
gentle,
teeth.
like
Yeah.
tap. Is
Yeah.
that gentle enough?
Right.
And you don't, because you don't want to like change anything. You don't want to cause some like negative reaction of the
Right.
coffee,
Because then again,
channeling or
you have to do
whatever.
the
So
whole process, and it becomes very difficult to identify what variation caused the channeling.
you have
So
to, then
yeah, I
you have
totally
to
get it.
also choose your grind setting. You have
Right.
to choose your ratio. So I'm constantly saying, okay, how much of this coffee do I need in my layer? And it was just challenging. So having something like the squid just helps me do that layering process very
Right.
seamless. Like I'll do 14 grams. I'll do a very soft tamp, just press the button and vibrate it for a second, and then I'll
Right.
throw my next layer on top. And it's gotten easier to do layered shots because I have like a bunch of different grinders now. So I
Right.
started doing things like flat burrs for my
With
top
conical.
layer, conical for the espresso
Oh,
layer.
lovely.
It's just fun.
Right. So
But yeah,
I
I
mean,
love that you've been enjoying the layered shots because
oh,
that's
I've been.
kind of
I
crazy.
mean,
Like
of course, it's a struggle for me because I'm a fan of flat bursts. I'll be very honest. and I will not shy away by saying this. So I use 54 Anthem, and I use 64 sorry, all grounds Ferranzato.
Okay. Nice.
But
Yeah,
whenever I do a layer,
I remember
so
when you
when
got that.
yeah, recently I think last year
Like
I
yeah,
got my
about a
Ferranzato.
year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I do a layered shot, I usually use my Ferranzato because
Mm.
that gives me more clarity. Plus, it gives me a good body as well. As compared to Anthem, Anthem gives me more fruitiness. If I'm on more, like on the lines of acidity, like higher on the acidity, then I use my Anthem.
Okay.
I mean, even though it's a very minuscule difference, it's just 10 millimeter difference,
Yeah.
10 mm difference. But then that 10 mm is also quite a lot of variable in terms of, pulling an espresso shot.
It's
So,
weird. Like right now, I've been using the Zerno a lot, and it's what 64 millimeter, and I have the 83 millimeter DF83, but I don't even like it. I love the Zerno, man. I can't believe the smaller burrs are working better in this case. It's crazy.
what's your take on Legume 01, 102 mm
Oh,
burr
the
size?
Legums. I mean, I love that. I love the design. It's so simple. It's so functional. I have the option O Mini. I haven't tried the other ones, but the Mini is like it's the small version of these bigger machines, and
Right.
and so I see that kind of design is very similar. The VS3 from Varia,
Warrior
they really copied
VS2.
that
Again,
like
it's a conical burr.
simplicity of design and stuff. So.
Right.
It's kind of cool. I mean, the P100, somebody just got, I think Alvin Chang maybe just got a P100. That thing looks insane. I
Right.
mean, I don't know.
Do,
It's just
Eddie, you want to show
too much grinder for me.
you want to show your Squid
Sure,
V1
sure.
to the viewers? I mean, I've been also I don't even remember when was the last time I saw that because you've been lately pulling up a lot of filter shots or the
Okay,
you've been doing filter coffee lately.
this is the current
Right.
squid that I have in my possession, but this iteration is going to change very soon. So the next one is going to have a lid that comes off either this way or the other side. So we're making the lid come off at an angle,
Right.
and we're going to be seeing how that helps us to distribute with to get an even level tamp. So
So the
here is
R&D
the
is still
Squid
on with this,
V1
yeah?
at the moment.
Right.
So I've
So the
got some
R&D is
different
still on.
options down here right now on this version. So I've got a little switch here. So this switch helps me to have a high power vibration, and I can
Right.
go and have a lower power vibration. So I thought for layered shots, having this option to have like a gentler distribution might be
Right.
useful. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure yet if it's useful, but it's like it's an option you have, and you can play with that. But these
Right.
settings here can be adjusted. So same kind of thing. Like one of these one of these knobs controls the low end of the spectrum, and the other one controls the high end of the
High
spectrum,
end of the spectrum.
and
Okay.
then the other one controls the intensity. So you can kind
Right.
of affect small changes to how intense the vibrations
Right.
are. So I know
Right.
for somebody like Lance or Espresso Fun, Robert, who are really into like the data side of coffee, I
Right.
feel like maybe they'll want to change or adjust settings to test different things. So I thought it would be useful to have like some adjusting of the
I think
vibration there.
coming to that point, I believe when you were traveling, I believe to Texas, you did had a chance to meet Hans, right?
I met Hoon
Hoon.
down there
Hoon.
in
I thought Hans.
Arizona. Yeah,
My bad. Hoon.
no, yeah, I met Hoon down in Arizona, so that was really cool. I mean, he was probably like one of the first people to contact me and be like, "Hey, I heard about what you're working on. Like, I really want to try it out.
Right.
You should, come visit me." And so I went down there to just try to honor that, like,
Correct.
desire and that early desire to want to try it out. So it was like, okay, I got to go get there. I got to see this guy. It's been like
Right.
a couple of years now. He keeps asking me. I don't know why, but he wants to see me. So I went. I made it
Right.
happen. I went down to see him. We've had a kind of earlier version of this. We had a different vibrator, and I was like all ready to launch this product, and
Right.
the vibrator was like failing, and it was like it failed every 3 months or something. And I was like, you know what? I'm not launching a
Hold on.
product where like the core of the product fails after a
Right.
few months. Like this is crap.
Right.
Like I couldn't get behind that anymore. So I was like, hey guys, this vibrator, we got to find something else because whatever we got here, it falls off or it dies. Like I can't sell this product. It's got to
Right.
work for the long haul. So that's a lot of
Right.
the things that I've been working on. It's like I need something that's going to last a long time. I had problems where like the electronics board was receiving some of these vibrations, and then that would break the electronics board.
Oh.
So we've been making changes inside to try to control and isolate these vibrations.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I need the vibrations in the portafilter, but
Right.
I don't need them like in the base. I don't need them anywhere else. So
Right.
it's like we need them focused into
And
the
it'll be
base of your
and it will be a
portafilter.
standard 58 mm for E61,
Yeah,
all
this is a
E61
standard
brew feds, yeah?
58. I've been trying it with the Gaggia recently. So one aspect of this at the moment is it has a removable shim. So as you can
Okay.
see here, it's got the little like, well, maybe not. Okay, you can see
Yeah.
it. 58 millimeter,
58
it
mm.
says on the
Okay.
base there.
Yeah.
So I've got
Right.
other ones for say 54 millimeter, down to like La Pavoni 51, 49 millimeter,
So all you
or
have
even
to do is change the shin, that
change the
bracket.
shim, and
That's it.
you're ready to go for a different kind of portafilter. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So
So
the
nobody has to
next
change the whole
iteration is going
unit.
to be a little different. We're not going to have this shim anymore. It's going to be like a silicone shim, maybe something similar to what you've been seeing with the canal
Yeah.
the canal portafilter that people have been showing off
Right.
recently. So
The
the
one which
canal
is
portafilter
flat at
has
the
these
bottom, at the back side where the
little
portafilter handle
notches.
is. Right.
So we're gonna have something like that inside where you can change like a silicone shim, and
Right.
hopefully it
Right.
works. If it doesn't, we'll have to come back to this other
I think
method. But
Teddy, the shin idea is still better because you would not have to break your head on designing a completely new product. I mean, which fits inside and which is compatible for two different size of portafilter because that's calling for task. That's a monumental task. Let's just be honest. I mean, while we talking, it sounds like, oh, you know what, it's just a minuscule
oh,
thing,
it's
but
gonna
it's not.
be it's
Yes.
I'm gonna be receiving it in like a
Yeah.
week or two. Yeah, no, it's ready.
Okay. But I
It's
mean,
ready.
as an end user, I would still prefer that, if I have that shin, I can just replace a shin, put the 54 shin, and I'm good to go.
Yes.
You know what? It makes
No,
life
no,
simple.
we're keeping the shims. They're just gonna be smaller. So this one is
Correct.
like you need this whole piece of plastic. So the
Right.
next one it's gonna be you need like a smaller a smaller piece really. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But if it doesn't work, I might have to come back to this. So it's
Yeah,
all,
for sure.
everything has to be tested, and it
Right.
might look cool or sound cool on paper, but until I vibrate it and make 10
Right.
shots with it, I won't know, oh, is this better or did we take a step back? So,
Right. Right. And you're gonna put this on Kickstarter as well,
yep, yep.
I reckon.
So there's like this weird thing with Kickstarter where like you have to start with Kickstarter. So
Right.
if I want to do, Indiegogo, like I can't do Indiegogo first and then come back
So
to
you have to
Kickstarter.
do
Like you have
Kickstarter
to
first.
start with
Oh,
Kickstarter. So we'll start
oh.
there
At
and then
least
we'll go to Indiegogo as well. So,
I'll be the first person to back that project for sure.
oh, thank you. Appreciate
For
it.
sure, man. For sure. Because I've been eyeing that squid, I think from the inception I've known you.
Absolutely.
So
I think so. I think I've seen so many different like coffee accounts grow from like nothing to astronomical numbers. I'm just like, what? You guys, I love it because I don't have to worry about it.
you have a
I'll let
second
you guys
backup.
grow, and then I just have to send you a squid and let you market it.
Teddy, you have a second backup, Caleb. He's like, I would be the second person to back your
Oh,
project on Kickstarter. See?
sweet, sweet. Thank you.
Uh,
I
so
really
Caleb,
appreciate
basically,
that.
Caleb is a dear friend of mine, and he's a ASC. He's a certified trainer from SCA,
Awesome.
and he has his own cafe. So, right time or a good time to tell you guys this podcast of today is sponsored by Vivace Cafe, who the owner is Caleb, and he's the ASC. So anybody is looking to you know get their certified up from SCA, you can contact me and I can put you on to Caleb directly.
Awesome.
So you can avail some discount for your courses because I know courses are pretty steep when it comes to SCA courses, like a barista training course or your sensory course and so on and so forth. So get in touch with me. I can help you get you some discount because not everybody can afford because it's pretty expensive and pretty steep. So yeah,
Oh man, the
that's
SCA
what
stuff
I
is
can
so
do from my
expensive.
end to give back to the community. So
That's
yeah.
great.
All right. Coming to so let's talk about layered shot. What do you mean by I mean, I know what is layered shot. It took me a while because I've been following your account for a very long time, and I remember how many times I must have messaged you and called you, not called you, but yeah, messaged you and spoken to you about how to go about the layered shot. And yes, for me, you're like the person that I look up to when it comes to espresso and layered shots because I've learned from you. So I would want you to explain what layered shot is and how do you approach a layered shot when you want to pull a espresso shot. Sorry.
Okay, so here's how I do it. Here's kind of how we arrived to this. We
And
arrived
what
to this
coffee?
because
Sorry, and what coffees to choose when it comes to layered shot? As in, should be a fruity coffee or a medium roast, dark roast? Which one should be up? Which one should be at the bottom and stuff?
absolutely,
Yeah, go ahead.
absolutely. So we kind of came to this because every once in a while you pull a shot of espresso and it just tastes like vinegar. And we were like, oh, a lot of these coffee shops you go to, you get an espresso right from the espresso machine, and you want like a single origin, let's say a Kenyan, and it's like it tastes like orange juice. And coming from like espresso, classic espresso, it's like sort of chocolatey, caramelly, nutty, foamy body texture, like all these things, and you don't have that when you when you have one of these like single origin espresso shots. So you have something that's like too acid. And I would call that like a jet fuel shot. So if I went to a coffee shop today, I would get one of these jet fuel shots like 9 times out of 10. They're not changing the temperature of the machine. They're just grinding it
I'm
and
sure they might
serving
not
it
be
and
even
saying this is
cleaning the
espresso.
portafilter. I'm sure they might not be even cleaning the portafilter by removing the basket. At least after
Not
20,
even cleaning
after
the
20,
portafilter. It's gross. Yeah. Like I was
at
just
least
in
after pulling
Portugal.
20 shots, 20, 30 shots, they should at least
They don't
remove the
even get
basket and
any
clean
of the
it.
coffee out.
Right.
It's just disgusting. It's just,
Right.
so like I was like, okay, um, I wonder if we can use cooking where we were like, okay, we need a little bit of garlic, and you serve your food, you squeeze a lime on top. So, like in Vietnamese food, when you serve the pho, you squeeze a little lime on top.
Right.
If you're serving fish or like a salad, you squeeze a little lemon on top.
Right.
So I was like, I have a lot of cooks in my family, and they're always just, you have to have acidity. You have to have acidity at the end of cooking. Once everything's done, the last thing you do is you add the acidity. So I'm like, okay, we should do that in coffee. And we love espresso. So that we have this espresso from Maui. It was called Maui Red Katui, and this Maui coffee was just like 100% chocolate and peanut butter every single time, like no burnt flavors, and just ugh. We would love to just make a shot of Maui Red Katui, I could drink that anytime.
Okay, so that's how you say katue. I would always say katuai.
So there's
Katui.
two of them. There's a Katui and there's a
Okay.
Katuai. So
Ah, okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
see both spellings, and I'm never quite sure if like they spelled it incorrectly or what. But
I
it's
always
like
saw
I'm
it's
so
katuai, and I
confused.
would always pronounce that
Katuai,
katuai.
Katui, Katura. So I'm like, I don't know. Did they misspell it? Maybe, but
Right.
it's in my lingo now. Um, so I would pull shots with this Maui, and we were really obsessed with Panama Elida. So Panama Elida, there's this one estate called, I think, like Finca Hartman, and so you see Hartman Estate and Panama Elida like everywhere in coffee, and it's super high elevation. It's like a wine region almost, and the coffee just tastes like grapes or blueberries, just incredible, wonderful espresso or even filter coffee flavors. And so we had this coffee, and we're like, what if we took 4 grams of it and put it on top of this Maui? And
Right.
so that was kind of how the layered shot was born.
Right.
I put
Right.
4 grams of Panama Elida. I grind it very fine. So when I'm doing these layered shots, I grind my layer for the top layer finer than the base layer. So the base layer, we know for espresso in general, like the dark roast is usually coarser than the medium roast. So yeah, we're like
Almost like smoothies the coffee. Yeah.
we're seasoning the coffee. Exactly. That's all it is. And it's very simple. I don't even really change the temperature anymore. Kind of like you you're at 90 over there. I'm
Right.
like that. I'm at like 80. I never change the temp. I keep it at 80. And so what I mostly do is a dark roast base layer and a fruity coffee on top.
Okay.
And so, like I said, it was 4/20, but now I got used to it. So now 4 isn't enough for me anymore. I want like 8 grams. So I'll do 8 grams over 16 grams, or I'll do 6/10, or 8/10, or 6/12. It's like it's all coffee dependent. So you pull a shot, you take a sip, it's either there or it's not. If it's not there, then I'll try to figure out the dose. So it's like you
Right.
want a dominant flavor, you want a secondary flavor. And so usually I'll do fruity over the dark roast, but sometimes you find a floral coffee, and so these floral coffees I will put below the dark roast. So it's you
Okay.
have the dark roast coming through the floral coffee. So you don't find too many florals, but once in a while you get like a Peru or like a
Right.
Kenya or some random Colombian that just has this like crazy
You know,
floral
Teddy,
note.
I do, what I basically, for my base, when I do, layered shots. So for my base, what I do is I keep coffees which have notes of spice, caramel, or dark chocolate. And for my top layer, I would use more of fruitier notes, like more on the lines of mellow or passion fruit, or on those lines. And then when I extract a shot, it is wonderful. I tried doing the same thing vice versa, you know put the
Hmm.
other thing up and the other one down, and the shot is completely
Yeah,
different. And for some
totally
reason I would
different.
still go back to my first one.
Hmm.
So
It
this really
changes
matters a
it
lot.
completely.
So yeah.
It's the wildest thing. You never really know, and it's worth. I feel like it's worth trying it both ways, but it just depends on your flavor preference. So
Right.
why
Okay.
don't I just blend it when it's like 10.6? I know, right? I should, right? But when you're a flavor purist, and I feel as well in blends in general, like espresso blends, you can kind of tell like when they channel. And so when I'm blending like two different roasts, and that's not too common in in coffee. Like you usually you find two different roasts and then you blend
Right.
them and roast them together, but you're kind of like blending the profiles, so the profiles kind of align in such a way that you're going to bring out the best of that profile with that blend,
Right.
but like they're roasted together. They're not roasted separately and then blended. But some people do roast separately and blend, and when you pull the shot, it channels like crazy, and you're like, this is crap. Like
Right.
Mick Flores made like a funny reel recently, and in his reel,
Right.
like half of the basket is dripping and the other half is not. I see that a lot with like these bad mixed blends where like, you know, half the side is working and the other half just
Right.
is not working.
But Teddy, a quick question on this on that. So, if one is doing a layer shot, does a person is compelled to use a VSC precision basket or IMS basket, or they can just use a normal basket? Which one do you reckon?
Well, you see, the problem is it depends on whether the basket is sculpted.
Right.
So with the IMS and the VST, they're pretty, you know,
Straight.
cylindrical on the
Yes.
sides. So it for me it really depends on that. Like some of these smaller baskets have like a little edge
Like
inside,
it
and when you're trying to
remote.
lay to tamp a layer, you do need to know maybe kind of where that ledge is because you won't be able to get maybe down far enough to do it or but no,
Right.
I don't think it's really too basket dependent aside from that. I mean,
So, when I do layered shots, so when I put the base uh, coffee
hmm
for my base, I'll use a normal tamper, like just normal tamp. And when I put the top layer, use a spring-loaded tamper, something like a non-core or the force tamper.
yep,
So what happens with that is, even if I put very little pressure on my base, and the top layer, when I do the force tamper, it basically compacts the whole thing
absolutely.
properly again.
Yep. That's pretty much how I was doing it. I would always do like a softer tamp on the
Right,
base layer and know that like the final compaction is really going to get everything
right.
tamped nicely.
Brilliant. So, Teddy, just a quick recipe if you have for people that they can make a note of as to how many grams should be the base and how many grams should be the top layer.
So I use just straight across the board for entry level 1/3 over 2/3. So if you want to calculate that, you can. So I do like dominant flavor. So I don't very often do say 50/50. Very
Okay, so if
rarely
your
do I
recipe is
find a
20 grams,
coffee where 50/50 works.
so if your recipe is 20 grams and you're using a 20-gram basket, so how many grams of
I would
coffee?
probably do like 6 grams over 12 grams, or 8 grams over 12 grams,
Okay,
or yeah, something like that. 6/14, 7/13. It's always coffee dependent, but you can start somewhere and see
right.
see what it tastes like.
Correct. I always go, mostly whenever I do layer shot, I always go, the 40-60 ratio. I would never go 50-50, or I will go 70-30
Yeah.
or
It's
80-20.
something actually from bread making that I kind of found like in bread making, you don't want like a 50/50 bread. It's like it's
Right,
not one or the other. You want like a strong bread flavor. And so I felt like in coffee as well, like I want a dominant chocolate caramel flavor, and then I
right.
want something else that's kind of just some sort of extra sweetness and fruitiness. What's up, Adrian?
Yeah, his content is also very good, but lately he's just been missing. I mean, I've not seen his content lately, but he used to be regular. I think he's the one from Canada, I believe, if
Yep.
I'm correct. Right?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Good fellow. All right, Teddy, we are almost on the last leg of the show. It's almost we finished 1 hour. I didn't even realize 1 hour just
Yeah,
passed by.
crazy.
Good stuff. Just a couple of more questions before we call it a day. Do you what's your what do you see or what do you see as the biggest challenges in the industry currently, or the current industry is facing currently in terms of coffee?
I think processing is probably going to be the biggest challenge right now for us going forward in coffee. I mean, have you seen the chocolate prices went absolutely through the roof? I mean, $10,000 for a ton right now. So that happened like instantly from
Right.
2,500 a month ago to 10K. Like, if we see that happen in coffee, which is crazy, I mean, it's not going to happen gradually. That's what the
Right.
moral of the story is. It's going to go from like, we're buying a bag of coffee for 25 bucks. It's
Right.
like the new normal could be 60 to $100 overnight. And
Wow.
that's like crazy, man. That's what we're
I
facing.
mean,
It's going to happen so fast, and it's going to be because of like financial traders, right? Like these
yeah.
futures traders are going to be like, "Oh, well, climate change did this year, so 10 years from now there's going to be no crop left." And okay, well, the prices are this now. This is going to be like, "What? What? We're
Yeah.
going to be grabbing our waste."
I mean, in terms of, Robusta is also gaining a lot of popularity now. Robusta.
Yeah,
I mean, I read somewhere a few days back where the green, Robusta green is almost or at par with Arabica greens. And at
incredible.
some places, it's, it's taken over Arabica as well in terms of
I mean,
pricing.
those work great for these layered shots because Robusta kind of has like a very dominant like milk chocolatey flavor.
Right.
And so to
More on the
have this
nuttiness side.
layered shot where you can be like, oh, how do we, take this very peanut buttery Robusta and change it a little bit. So now you
Right.
really can do that with these layered shots.
Right. Good man, good stuff. I'm just enjoying this conversation. I just don't want to end, but yeah, we have to call it a day. Before we go ahead, any advice, Teddy, you have to give for someone looking to break into the industry, like coffee industry, or if anybody wanting
So
to
in,
be a
in in my
home
life,
brewer
the
stuff?
the biggest thing that I've done is to be a sponge for knowledge, to not reject
Right.
opinions, and just to be like, oh, okay, that's what you think. Well, let me explore the
Brilliant.
possibility that
Yes.
this line of thinking is valuable, and so I'll I'll try the Samo Bloom. I'll try the layered shot. I'll try all these different things that people are working on. Like I'll watch JWT Milan. He brews really funky stuff,
Right.
and I'll be like, wow, I want to try that thing that he's doing. It's like
Good
I'm
stuff.
always
Even Mike.
seeing, a new style of trying something. And even in cooking, like I'll be doom scrolling Instagram and I'll see a
Right.
recipe and I'll be like, wow, I never thought
Right.
of combining stuff like that, and I'll try that. So in my line of work, I'm renovating houses, and a lot of the time I don't know the skill that I require. And so we hire someone, but
Right.
then I pay attention to what this person does, and I'm like, oh, I could easily be doing this job. Like, I just
Right.
need to pay a little bit more attention, and I'll get it. I'll watch some YouTube videos, and
Right.
next thing I know, I'm doing the all the electrical work and all the plumbing, and it
Correct.
takes you have to be open to what you can do and what you can't do, and but also you want to try and you want to experiment. So that's something with me personally. Like I'm just I want to try everything. I want to learn everything, and
Right.
I might not always do it. I might just learn it and absorb it, and
Right.
then who knows when I need to use it again. I don't know, but I have that knowledge. I have that baseline of information which I can use. So in cooking, I pay attention to how garlic is used. So I'm
Right.
constantly paying attention. Oh, like I watched this guy the other day, and he like baked the garlic first in the oven, and then he mashed it into his spaghetti. And
Right.
it's like, okay, so that's like a cool thing I don't do all the time. But yeah, so you just pick up these little techniques here and there and see if it works for you, and maybe you can adapt it or apply it to your own field. So
Brilliant. Yeah,
be a
I hope everybody
sponge for
took note of
knowledge.
that. Yeah, I hope everybody took note of that. But yes, Terry, thank you so very much for really taking the time out. I know it's past midnight for you, and I really
I
appreciate that
slept
you.
from
Really,
like 9 until midnight.
so I really appreciate, buddy, and I thank you so very much for sharing all
Hey,
the
thanks for having
insights
me.
about
It was
your.
a lot of fun. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, we should do that soon, and I'll be looking out for the Squid V1 when it's on Kickstarter, and I
Yep.
will make sure that you have a lot of backers in India as well,
Sweet.
and
Thank you.
we
Appreciate
we
it.
should connect sometime again soon. All right, buddy. Thank you so very much. Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Thank
Aloha.
you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and have a good day. Cheers. Bye bye. Bye, Teddy.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.